Okay, welcome back everybody. So again, uh, um, we're back to structures as a function argument. Structure members can be passed to a function in the same manner as a scalar, any variable, right? So basically we have a statement display. We can have employee.id number to pass particular variable member from the structure to the function display, right? But right, we can also pass the whole structure itself, right? So what it'll do is it'll make a copy of the structure. In order to do that, of course, in the function we have to also create a variable that is of the same data type of the structure, right? So let's look at the example here, right? So we have an employee amp, right, with this global data type, right, that has three members: ID number, pay rate, and hours, just like our previous example. And it will basically and we call a function calculate net, and we pass this data, the whole structure itself, to the particular function. Now if you look at to the function, you will see that the calcnet receives a temporary, because it's copied by value anyway. So it has the employee data type called and a variable called temp, and then what we'll do is we calculate the temp.pay rate times temp.hours, right? So this is one way to basically calculate those values and return it as a calcnet, and one way to for us to pass parameters, a whole structure, to the function, right? So so the output should be around 361. You should follow the code and see if you can get or write the code and see whether you can get the same value, right? Okay, so the variables defined in the main and calcnet are different structures. The temporary one is local to the function, and the one in the main is particularly is global to the main function, right? Alright, so the next is part 2 of this is to find the methods that can be used for passing pointers into structures, or dynamic structure, having a dynamic structure allocation, right? And then we'll talk about some unions and common programming errors, right? So let's look into passing a pointer, right? So we can, instead of passing it by value, we can pass it by reference, right? And by doing that, we basically provide the pointer and we provide the address of the structure, right? That way we are sending over to the function the address of the pointer itself, right? The next question is, how do we access elements or members in the pointer itself, right? So in order to access the pointer and the structure members using pointers, then we'll use star.pointer dot id number for the id in the structure, or the pay rate, right? So we can access each element using the dot operator, right? Now the parentheses around the expression star pointer in figure in this, right? Sorry, in the program is necessary, right? Because this would define which structure we are dealing with, right? The address of that particular pointer, right? The address that contains in that particular pointer, right? So essentially, basically, we are accessing the first memory location in that particular data type, right? So passing a pointer, right? Again, starting address of M is also the address of the first member of the structure, right? So when dealing with pointers here and structures, we can also use uh, with the arrow uh, arrow notation, right? So this sign notation that has this basically can replace some of the elements here. You can represent star pointer dot id number with the pointer arrow id num, right, which would access the id number, right? All right, so other things to consider here, we have a we can pass it by reference, and then we can access it directly using m pointer hours, right? So keep that in mind in how to access pointers, right? And pointers can also we can also pass pointers to it and do some kind of operations on it. For example, the expression plus plus pointer changes the address in pointer to starting address of pointer number 2, right? Minus minus pointer would change it to pointer number 0, right, if we start as the employee 1, right, or if our address is pointed there, right? So let's look at the example here. So if we have our current pointer points to the first element in the employee array, then we can use pointer minus minus to point it previously, or pointer plus plus to for the next row, right? Let's look at a coding example here, where we define an employee. Is the value it has, right? And later we can basically calculate the net pay. Here we can access the particular elements by just pt dash pay rate star pt dash hour, right? So if we do have a next element, it will be just pt plus plus, right, that we can go to, right? All right, returning a structure handling function gets direct access to structure by receiving structure reference of address. So if we're passing stuff by value, we can't really return it back, but we can pass it by reference, and so uh, the changes would be made because we are passing it by reference. But if you want to return a new structure itself, right, then we have to be careful in how we declare the function, how we return it back, right? Here's an example of it. Now we have employee equals to get values, assign result of structs to temp. So what will happen is that it will create a structure and then return the variable next, right? So when we return next, basically we reassign it to a new to the employee here, and therefore rewriting employee here. So we make a copy, so we use the copy that was made in the function, and return it to the one that was made in the main function, right? All right, so now sorting in a structure is possible, right? Structures are just like arrays. So if you want to do sorting, you can apply the bubble sort, right? It's a bit different because it will have more than one element, so you will have to maybe decide on what you want to be sorted first, or and then you continue with the next column and the next column that you want to sort, right? So there must be an idea of how you want to sort it, right? And then particularly sort the elements that way, right? So here's an example. If we are trying to sort maybe the hourly rate, right? And then if you sort the hourly rate and then sort the ID number, then you would have to do special things there, right? Also, when you are looping through when the bubble sort, make sure that you are swapping uh, the 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 previous data in the array, right, with whatever you found that you want to swap, right? So you might have to do some kind of arithmetic here. For example, if you want to swap between I and the previous I, right, then you have to quite smart in dealing with that and do some mathematics, right? So for example here, mi equals to star mi minus 1, right? So previous of the um, current data array, and swap it, similar to dealing with arrays particularly. Okay, so that's how bubbles works, and next we're going to talk about dynamic allocation and structure, right? So I'll take a break now and I'll catch you in a few minutes with the dynamic structure allocations.